So I'm going to talk a little bit about building a MarTech company and what my experience was like. Now, if you don't know TubeMogul, we build software for brand advertising. And our mission is to make brand advertising as simple and accountable as paid search. And to achieve that, we give advertisers all the functionality that they need to plan, buy, measure, and optimize their video ad spend in a single piece of software. So if you're an advertiser and you're using our software, you can launch a sophisticated, scalable video ad campaign onto any device within minutes and completely on your own. So we essentially automate a set of things that used to be incredibly manual. That's one of the themes in your white paper. And in doing so, we really free marketers up from no longer having to manage all of these ad buying logistics and to be marketers again, to be creative and be strategic. Now the company is about 500 people. Last year, we saw $254 million in ad spend through our software. That was up from $110 million the prior year. We've been widely recognized for being a really innovative company, a great place to work, and having great customer service. In the last July, which was about 7 years after we started the company, we took the company public on the NASDAQ under the stock ticker symbol TUBE. But this was not the vision on day one, or even the vision several years in. In fact, looking back, we just weren't smart enough to know exactly where things were going to go. But what we did know and what we prioritized was the values and principles that were important to us. So we didn't know exactly what the products were going to look like, but we knew what type of company that we wanted to build. Now, our values and principles, they're not revolutionary, they're not that complicated, and it starts with accountability. We call it the do-say ratio. And simply put, we value people that do what they say, people that follow through. And I think that having a high do-to-say ratio, it's almost the only thing that matters in a startup. Second, we value people that have an extreme bias for action, what we call GSD, or get shit done. Next, we value people that are just self-aware and honest, kind of humble, if you will, and that aren't afraid to admit it when they made a mistake, or admit it when you built something and it didn't live up to the expectations that you had beforehand. People that are okay doing that and that can aggressively course correct. And lastly, it's just so hard to start a company from nothing and build it into a meaningful company that we valued this notion of focus, just trying to be the best in the world at one thing. Now at TubeMogul, these values, they weren't just posters that we slapped up on a wall. These were the reasons why we hired, fired, and promoted people. These were real. And over the years, we've taken care to scale our culture just like we'd scale our software. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of the history of TubeMogul and how our values help guide us and to be brave during critical moments. I met my co-founder, John Hughes, in 2006, and John to this day runs all engineering and product for TubeMogul. At the time, we were both in business school at UC Berkeley. Now, if you can remember back that far, YouTube hadn't won yet. A shoe referenced this. There were lots of different video sharing sites. So what our first product did is it helped content creators of video in one fell swoop get their video to both YouTube and all of these other sites all at once. Then we'd aggregate the analytics into a single dashboard. So upload once to us, the software took care of the rest. We called the product OneLoad. So we're back in business school. We enrolled in Berkeley's business plan competition, and we tied for first place, and we won the People's Choice Award. And this $22,500 that we won, this was our startup capital. And the office space, the incubator space that Berkeley gave us, this was our launch pad, and TubeMogul was born. And I like this picture because it reminds me, in the beginning, we had to recruit engineers, and we didn't have money to pay them. Imagine trying to do that, Jason. No money, so we paid them in stock and free Halloween candy and coffee. But pretty early on, we got a lot of traction with this content syndication offering. And in part, we were leveraging a lot of things that were happening around the 2008 presidential election. And we had this young guy named Macon Phillips, who at the time, he was one of the leaders at an agency called Blue State Digital, which was Senator Obama's media agency. Now, Macon found us. I don't remember how, but after he did, we were on the phone with Macon almost every day. And if there was anything that he needed to help get Obama's videos out to the masses, we would build it for him, even if it meant kind of pivoting our roadmap. Also at the time, we started publishing these charts like this that would show kind of the video views by candidate. And we even did this before the primaries. And if you can remember back then, this was really the first election that candidates were using online video to tell their stories. So we started to get a lot of press and notoriety just for our coverage of the political cycle. Macon, by the way, after the election was promoted to be new media director of the White House. And I don't want to take too much credit, but John McCain's team, they didn't use our software. Maybe they should have. Other early users were Warner Brothers Records, Mark Cuban was a big user, and we had a lot of early YouTube stars and new media creators. And in the early days, we didn't even try to charge them. All we asked was for constant product feedback, and we asked them to help create awareness for us and market. So they were blogging about us and talking about us on panels. And then we also asked them to help us with investor due diligence calls. Because when you start a company, you're always raising money, and raising money is hard. But within 2 years, by 2009, we'd grown this service to 400,000 active users. And we had a nice growing freemium revenue model where content creators would pay us to unlock certain features or for more usage. But so at the time, you could say things were going really well. We did $2.8 million in revenue in 2009. We were hitting the goals. We had a lot of buzz. We were having fun. But back to that quality about self-awareness, we just didn't really believe that the problems that we solved were painful enough to build a big business. So we had our first pivot, and we pivoted from video syndication to video analytics. And the seeds of this pivot began when we acquired a very small video analytics company, the founders of which are still our chief technology officer and our chief strategy officer. And you know what? It looked a lot like OneLoad, where within a short period of time, we were market dominant. We were powering the analytics for thousands of publishers, and hundreds of publishers were paying us. New York Times was paying us, CBS. We were powering the analytics for video platforms like Brightcove. We really felt like we were onto something. There was something there. Now, while this was our focus, we were also beginning to experiment with a small video ad network. And the idea for the video ad network is that we would use the data from the analytics company to be smarter about where we placed video ads. So in 2010, when we went to raise our B round, we had raised $5 million to that point. Our B round was a $10 million round led by Ashu and Foundation Capital. And this was our pitch. It was all about analytics plus advertising. And I remember showing you this slide, and Mike, your partner, and my pitch was our advertising business is going to be really special precisely because we have this analytics asset. So you can imagine the conversation when less than a year later, I told Ashu that we needed to kill the analytics product. And at the time, we were just beginning to see a more disruptive business to transform brand advertising using software. We were also really worried, back to kind of the value of focus, that we weren't going to be good at operating these two different businesses. We had raised venture capital, and we weren't sure, even if this was a good business, was it really going to be big enough to support venture capital returns? So we pivoted once again, and we launched the first enterprise software company for brand advertising. Now, if I could take you back to 2009, this was not an easy decision. We were killing what was at the time a market-leading analytics product. And I think part of what gave Ashu and our other board members kind of the confidence to let us do this is that we had hit every single one of our revenue milestones since inception. So they trusted us to follow through and do what we say and to make this leap. So when you do what you say, people, they'll bet on you. So in the early days, now we've launched an ad buying software, but the market for programmatic just wasn't there. It was a nascent market. Programmatic budgets were kind of deemed experimental. If there were budgets, they mostly went into display. So our early competitors were really video ad networks. If you don't know what a video ad network is, they're companies that kind of bundle together the long tail of the internet and then package up a bundle of ads and sell it to advertisers. But often where advertisers have no control or transparency into where their ads were really running. Now, in the early days, we were just losing all the time to these video ad networks, and often it was on price. And it was at prices that just seemed kind of fantastically low. We didn't know how they were doing it. What we discovered is that a lot of these video ad networks, they were taking an advertiser's ad and they were putting it in a banner or a small video player that would autoplay upon a page load. Not only is that super annoying, but it's not what Julie thinks she's buying. Most marketers thought they're buying an ad that when you click play on it, on a piece of video content, then the ad would load. So we built a piece of technology to prevent this from happening in TubeMogul, but we felt like we needed to be honest with the market about what was happening. But there was risk in doing that because digital advertising is new, and anytime you're negative, it scares money away. And people were telling me we'd never capture TV budgets, but we did it anyway. And we launched a blog expose site called fakepreroll.com. And fakepreroll.com, it essentially highlighted these fake pre-roll ads, these ads that were running in banner. And we would call out the site, and we would call out the person serving the ad, and we even gave metadata. So if you were a brand, you could search up to see if your ads were running in fake pre-roll. Now, what we did at first is we highlighted our own ads, but then we started to highlight our competitors' ads as well. You can imagine they didn't like that. Within a few days, we had multiple cease and desists. I distinctly remember calling you, and I was worried you'd chew me out, but you were actually quite proud about this. But we shut down this site, but we made our point. And the brands that were just thirsty in market for more control and transparency, they took note. And transparency really became kind of the centerpiece of our own brand. And shortly after, we launched our own video ad to help advertisers understand our value prop at the time.
Welcome to the wild, wild west of video advertising. It's a land of opportunity where brands and consumers connect each day. But all is not well. Outlaws are running wild and scaring brands away. But there's a new sheriff in town. A sheriff that despises bandits who steal from brands. A sheriff that wants to eliminate fake pre-rolls and ads running beside awful content. A sheriff that's not afraid to take on the bad guys and give brands what they deserve. It's time to run the outlaws out of town and make the wild, wild west safe for video advertising. TubeMogul, built for branding.
Another story I wanted to share is about video viewability. And if you haven't heard of the concept of video viewability or viewability in general, it's kind of a profound concept for advertisers. And it's simply the idea of knowing whether or not someone actually watched your ad, or at least if they had the opportunity to watch your ad. And in the display space, it took a long time for the market to have any standards around display viewability. And we were one of the first companies to kind of develop the technology for video viewability. But we thought, video viewability is just not something that should be proprietary to any one platform. This should be table stakes, and we need to solve this as an industry. So we did something which I don't think has ever been done before in ad tech, and we open sourced our code, we put it on GitHub, we gave it away to all of our competitors, and we invited our competitors and a group of companies in the industry to join a TubeMogul founded and led consortium called OpenVV. They contributed their code, and together in partnership with the Media Ratings Council, the MRC, kind of the governance body in advertising, within a year, we had created a standard for video viewability in the market. So this was no longer something that you needed kind of a translator to talk about if you were an advertiser. So between these moves and simply just sticking to our principles, we took a lot of market share from those video ad networks. Now, our focus has always been on digital video advertising. And this is a great market. And this is probably a slide that we used when we were fundraising along the way, because venture capitalists, they love big markets. And it's growing 30% a year. It's on track to be a $20 billion market in just a couple years. But one of our insights is that digital video is actually quite small when compared next to its more successful older brother, the television advertising market. So last year, digital video advertising, I think it was about 13 billion. TV advertising was 200 billion. So you read all these headlines about the death of television, yet it's still growing every year. And at least most advertisers that I talk to, TV is absolutely still the fulcrum of their ad strategy. And that's something Silicon Valley often misses. One of the challenges with TV is it just hasn't changed much in decades and decades. It's largely just totally untouched by software and automation. So the way you buy TV now, it's not that different from how you bought TV in the 60s. And buying TV, it can be pretty cumbersome and restrictive, and it's very difficult to use data or apply any deep intelligence to a buy. So in December, we launched a product called PTV, or programmatic television. And PTV is the first self-serve software for buying linear television. And the idea was simply just to bring the power and automation of software to the world's largest advertising market. Now, at launch, you could go into the software and you could buy over 70 different cable networks or broadcast networks. And while the product is still very new, we've seen advertisers do some really interesting things with it. Mondelez, who's the maker of Oreos, used our software to buy the first programmatic TV Super Bowl ad. And they bought the ad just a few days before the event. I mean, imagine that. Normally you buy a Super Bowl ad, there's months of negotiations. They bought this ad just a few days before the event. American Express bought 8 different ad spots during the Academy Awards. Again, they bought this just a couple days before. They bought it through software. There was only one person involved. Now, a la our mission of making brand advertising more accountable and more simple, hopefully you've seen with the web kind of video demo in the background, that's what we're trying to do with television advertising. We're trying to give all the control back to advertisers, where they can pick and choose exactly what they want to do, where they can see the trade-offs of the decisions that they make, where they can see exactly where they ran and exactly what drove the outcomes that they got in their business. Now, we're certainly very excited about linear television, but we're not stopping there because, if you think about video now as a consumer, you just don't even distinguish between the screens. You just watch video wherever you want. But we still force advertisers to buy video in silos. You can buy Facebook video, you can buy AdMob, you can buy mobile video, tablet video, desktop pre-roll, or linear television. You will see us in short order build tools to make buying video very holistic and cross-screen, where the software recommends which screen the advertiser should buy and immediately executes the plan. And we're certainly not stopping with television either. When I think about kind of decade of the CMO, it's all about software. And we've seen all of these other industries that have just been completely transformed by software. It's just beginning to happen in ad land. And we plan to be one of the driving forces and kind of continuing to automate the things that are hard. And as we do it, we'll continue to prioritize and scale all these values that have gotten us this far. So thank you very much.